The Kansas City Chiefs are basically on an every other week basis with saving and losing their season. But the Cowboys had kind of been on a lost season trajectory for a while until the past couple of weeks, beating both the Raiders and the Eagles in order to find themselves at 5-5-1. Now, the Chiefs maybe don't absolutely have to win this game, but it's important for them to win this game if they are going to find themselves in the playoffs. And it's important for the Cowboys as well. So what can the Chiefs do in order to win this football game? Well, there's a lot of things they can do, but the one place that it seems to start for the Cowboys is with Dak Prescott. Now, what we have on screen here is Dak's season-long stats. And we're not going to start with actual stats. We're going to start with this. A win versus Philadelphia, a win versus the Raiders, and what are we going to look at in correlation with those numbers? Well, you had a 103.2 rating versus the Eagles in order to get that victory, a 138.6 rating versus the Raiders, in what is an obvious showing for any team that is actually in the NFL. We go back one more week. We're looking at the Arizona Cardinals, to whom the Cowboys lost by 10 points. Now, when you start to look at the Cowboys over these last 2 weeks, a very formidable opponent, a team that is going to probably give the Chiefs a run for their money. But if you go the 2 weeks before then, they lost to the Cardinals. They were beat by 20 by the Broncos. This is a week after beating the Commanders by 22, but then losing to the Carolina Panthers, beating the Jets, tying the Packers, and they opened the season 1-2, losing to the Eagles and the Bears while beating the Giants. But they had to go to overtime with the Giants in order to squeak out a 3-point win. So there's a lot going on with this schedule. But we'll stop just for a moment with the Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals held Dak Prescott to a 77.9 rating, and they sacked him 5 times. The Broncos held him to a 51.5 rating. You see these 2 interceptions here, and they sacked him 2 times. Very, very bad evening for Dak Prescott versus the Broncos. Only threw for 188 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Very rough outing. Versus the Commanders, a win for the Cowboys, threw for 130.4. So that rating number seems to be very big for Dak Prescott. Carolina, they lost. This is a bit of an anomaly because he had a 124.8 rating and 0 sacks, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Sometimes your team just loses. Hard to go out to Carolina that way when your quarterback goes for 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a 124.8 rating, and 0 sacks, but it happens. It's the NFL. That win versus the Jets, 127.4 rating, was only sacked once. Tying Green Bay, 124.9 rating. You've got the Chicago game, which they lost, and wouldn't you know it, Dak Prescott in that game held to an 80.3 rating, sacked twice. Also, 2 interceptions there. It seems that between sacks and interceptions, if you can get to the magical number of 4, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are toast. But you see this game against the Giants where they did win, but again, it was the Giants. You had to go to overtime to get a 3-point win over the Giants. Why is that? Well, 1 interception thrown by Dak Prescott and 3 sacks on the day. So I want to hone in a little bit more on the, we'll get this cleared out real quick, on this Arizona game here. A 10-point loss to the Arizona Cardinals, where Dak Prescott threw an interception, was sacked 5 times. How did the Cardinals pull that off? Well, this is just looking at the game here. You had the Cardinals jump out to a 3-0 lead in the first. They scored 14 in the second. They scored 10 in the third. And then they just held out the game in the fourth, being outscored for the only time in that game by the score of 7-0. All of those mishaps from Dak Prescott, 5 sacks, 1 interception. Well, 4 of those sacks came between Calais Campbell and Josh Sweat. Now, what I'm going to tell you up front, the Chiefs do not have Calais Campbell. The Chiefs do not have Josh Sweat. But their biggest defensive lineman, their best defensive lineman, Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, and I would say Charles Omenihu, that's who I would put in at third there. These are players built in the same style as Calais Campbell and Josh Sweat, each of who in that game contributed 2 tackles, 2 sacks. Okay, so those are the players to whom the Cowboys' offensive line appears to be weak every once in a while. Big, strong defensive linemen, whether they are lightning fast or not. So Calais Campbell, obviously 73 years old at this point in time, so you're not going to convince me he's winning many foot races in the NFL. Josh Sweat, a 6'4", 265-pound defensive end, I believe, so a size guy there as well. So what are we looking at with the Cowboys' offensive line? Well, Tyler Smith is one of the offensive guards, a 67.9 rating from PFF, but only a 58.2 pass blocking rating. He's committed 9 penalties, a bit Jawan Taylor-ish there, and he has given up 2 sacks along the way. He does have a 77.8 run blocking grade, pretty effective with the running game. So let's look at their center, Cooper Beebe. Cooper Beebe, 0 sacks given up, 0 penalties. Things look pretty good so far. A 66.5 overall grade. Okay, 342 snaps. Something going on there, right? You get here a 54.6 run blocking grade, or pass blocking grade. Giving up 0 sacks still, but that 54.6 pass blocking grade is something to worry about, especially if you have Chris Jones staring you in the face all the livelong day. Now, a 69.9 run blocking grade. So remember, his brother-in-arms, his guard here, has a 77.8 run blocking grade. He has a 69.9. So you, on the interior of the offensive line, your strength is the running game. Well, what about the other offensive guard? You have Tyler Booker, a 69.9 overall grade, 573 snaps played. He's committed 6 penalties this year. He's only given up 1 sack. But he still only has a 60.4 pass blocking grade. That's not great. 76.7 run blocking grade. So your interior offensive line is aimed at running the football. That's kind of one of the ways that the Cardinals were able to put a spanking on the Cowboys. They took the running game out of the equation because they put the Cowboys on their heels early. Now, it doesn't mean it's impossible to run, doesn't mean you're not going to run, doesn't mean you can't run, but it means you are going to err towards putting the ball in Dak Prescott's hand and making him pass. Now, we've talked about the interior offensive line for the Cowboys here. What about their tackle situation? Well, they are missing their best Tyler on the offensive line, so they're going to be going with a backup, but Terrence Steele is their right tackle. 66.6, a little bit troubling of a number there. Total offensive grade is 734 snaps played. He's committed 4 penalties, respectable. Given up 4 sacks, not great there, which yields a 56.4 pass blocking grade and a 74.3 run blocking grade. He, too, Terrence Steele, their right tackle, is a run blocking offensive lineman. So it must be all in the left tackle, right? Well, the left tackle is their best Tyler along the offensive line. He's out. I think it is going to be Nate Thomas filling in for him. Nate Thomas, in 127 snaps this season, has already given up 1 sack and committed 2 penalties. Has a 44 overall grade. Not good there, not good at all. Still, a decent 60.1 run blocking grade. However, that pass blocking grade is a 36.1 for Nate Thomas. If this is the guy that the Cowboys have to wheel out there at left tackle, it could be ugly for them. The Chiefs, for what it's worth, don't have a whole lot of talent at the edge position. George Karlaftis, however, is a guy that can get to the quarterback if the quarterback is taking a little bit of time dawdling in the pocket. That is what George Karlaftis is really, really good at. He's sort of one of these Night of the Living Dead type pass rushers. He just keeps pushing forward. If you have George Karlaftis against one of these offensive tackles, which, obviously, probably you will, I'm not going to say that he's going to have a huge day, but he's going to be trouble for Dak Prescott for the entire game. Chris Jones has been a fan lately of jumping, outside, inside, etc., etc. I would suggest that the best route in this game is to just line up Chris Jones next to George Karlaftis and make that offensive line go to work against your 2 best pass rushers on the same side of the field. And if you are going to blitz the way that Steve Spagnuolo does love to do, bring it from the opposite side. Make it man up across the line. You have Chris Jones and George Karlaftis on, for example, the left side of the line where George Karlaftis will be going against Nate Thomas. Very difficult position for him to be in. And then you have an offensive guard face up with Chris Jones because you have a blitzer coming off of the right edge, meaning that everyone along the line needs to be manned up. Chris Jones, again, we've seen Chris Jones has a very tall frame, has those very long arms. Dak Prescott is a bigger quarterback, but if you can obstruct his view, that might be enough. The Cowboys, as we saw, we go back up to these numbers for Dak Prescott this season. Dak Prescott, under 100 rating, that's a loss. Under 100 rating, that's a loss. Under 100 rating, that's a loss to the Bears. Under 100 rating, that's a loss to the Eagles. Under 100 rating, That is a win against the Giants by 3 points in overtime. So you hold Dak Prescott under that number by getting sacks on Dak Prescott, by forcing turnovers on Dak Prescott, and things go well for you. If there is a key to this game for the Kansas City Chiefs defensively, I think it is this. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.